Welcome to the Lander Bet Sports Betting Show. Got one game here in the playoffs on Friday. It's game 6 between the Rockets and the Dubs back in Golden State. We're going to be taking a look at the matchup stuff here, insights and data from game 5 that we might be able to use. Obviously, that game was a blowout real quick. Couple things that we learned from there. So we'll go over that stuff, get into the player props that I'm looking at to bet on Friday morning when I get these plays up. So if that all sounds good, give this video a like. Let's get right into things. Notes I'm looking at for this game, coming from game 5 here, Houston shot 69%, nice, in the first half. They made their first 11 free throw attempts, and that was kind of the thing we were talking about, right? The free throws were a huge part of this. They were leaving like 10 points per game on the table with the free throws, and in this one, they ended 32 for 38 from the line, as opposed to, again, 69%, nice, from the free throw line in the prior 4 games of this series. And in the playoffs, it just hasn't been, I mean, they were bad during the regular season, let's be honest, been worse in the playoffs here. The minutes did get all messed up, though. So what we learned, it's not necessarily, things based on how many minutes guys played. It was about when they came out. It was about rotations. In the case of the Dubs, for a couple people, it was the way that some backups came in and played. And are there any of those that actually might have a shot at cracking the rotation, getting a few more minutes in game 6? We can talk about that here in a minute as well when we look at the matchups and the props. We can go back to the role players, though, for Golden State, who I mentioned we should not be touching in this last game. The only one would have been Moses Moody. He's the only one who was a role player that even had props available for the Dubs, who did well, as opposed to Pat Spencer, who definitely did not have props up and probably should get some minutes. I don't know. He looked all right, but at any rate, he got thrown out of the game. The Dubs tried to come back. They couldn't do it. Moving forward into Golden State, though, this is one thing we learned. Buddy has a short leash. I know that wasn't a close game. Starters weren't playing normal minutes. Buddy did start in this last game, but he's got a short leash. And I don't know if his leash is long enough to keep him from getting pulled from the starting lineup here in game 6. Kerr has always had a super short leash with him. If he's not making shots and he does anything dumb, he's done, right? Kerr's going to be pretty upset with him. So we'll see. Does that lead to more Moody, who had an incredible game? The only player who had a good game for this team, I would say, outside of Pat Spencer, was Moses Moody. Obviously, he's playing against backups. He's playing in garbage time when it doesn't matter. So it's not the same. But he would be the guy that I would expect to retake his spot in the starting lineup for Buddy if that happens. Let's look at these matchups, though, and just get right into Golden State on offense. So I've got Curry, Pods, healed with the exclamation point, Jimmy, and Draymond. The exclamation point is because he could legit get pulled, and if he doesn't get pulled from the starting lineup, we could see Moses Moody come in and take a few more minutes from him than he was playing. We saw Buddy play 30 minutes in game 4. Not sure if that's going to happen, but thing to keep in mind here is Şengün is trying to stay off of Draymond. He is trying to guard a sort of smaller player in a way, and at times that leaves Draymond way open in the corner with Fred VanVleet on him. It hasn't really led to Buddy getting left open. The real thing here is they want Şengün to be able to switch off, so he's not really going to stick to Buddy. I talked about this in the last episode talking about the Dubs. He's not going to be chasing Buddy when he goes up from the corner to the top of the key, right? They're just going to switch, and he's just going to guard whoever comes to him down low, and oftentimes that'll end up being Draymond. But the Dubs don't play with anybody with their back to the basket anyway, so Ime is just trying to keep Şengün from having to get switched up, and he can just stay down essentially. Looking at the other side of the ball with the Rockets on offense, interestingly, we saw Pods guard a lot more VanVleet here in the last couple games with Buddy Hield in the starting lineup, and they were putting Hield on Jalen Green. But really, it's a team effort on Jalen Green, and he started cooking in the first part of this last game against Buddy Hield. I would imagine that Udoka does like to get him going early to get his confidence up, to see if he can then really get him in the rhythm of the game, not just on offense, because when Jalen Green does poorly on defense, his offense suffers. So we'll see. His minutes might be capped as well, depending on how well he plays defense. Udoka is not a guy afraid to give somebody a quick pull. Everybody outside of VanVleet and Şengün and Dylan Brooks has the opportunity to get a short leash and get pulled for fewer minutes than you might expect. But the only other thing to look at here on defense that I would mention is Draymond Green on Şengün. They're doing a lot to get Green off of him, right? And a lot of that is Şengün playing up top. So he's coming in with a lot more assists lately, a lot more potential assists, because there is no Jalen Green. So the touch time goes to Şengün and to VanVleet. And then you see as a result, like Şengün getting being the ball handler in the pick and roll. And that's how he gets Draymond Green off of him, which is why he had that huge game in game 4. And then he didn't need to have his big game in game 5, but he was still cooking. He just didn't need the minutes to get there. He only had 15 points in that one. I think we're probably going to be looking at a lot more points and assists for Şengün in this one. It's going to be using Props Madness here on the show, #1 sports betting research tool. Sharing my screen so you guys can see exactly how I'm using it. If you do want to jump in, use code LYB. That'll get you 7 free days to try it out. You'll also get 25% off your first month here. The most efficient and best time-saving way to look at the props that you're looking for here. But let's go ahead and get into some of these bets that I do want to talk about here. I mean, most of these are going to be similar from what we saw in the last game. And I don't remember actually if I went over this or if I just gave it out in the VIP. But in the last game, I really liked Steph assists. They were 4.5 for juiced at like -120 here to the over. I think -110 is an awesome number. You're even getting even money on BetMGM. He went under in the last 2 games, right? But in game four here, he had 8 rebound chances, just got 3 rebounds. I'd say that's unlucky if you're looking at his numbers in the playoffs as a whole versus this team, and really just this team in general, head-to-head on the season. A couple games where he went under as well, but you can see the rebound chances when we pull that up on the advanced filters here. You can see right here, rebound chances are at 7.8 versus this team on the season, and in the playoffs, he's at 8.8 versus this team. And that includes last game where he only had 5 because he only played 23 minutes. But he's been playing 40 minutes. So if you give him 9 in this last game, is what that would be extrapolated out to. If he played about 39, 40 minutes, he would have had 9 rebound chances. But he just had 3 on 5. He only needs 2 more to get there for us. It just wasn't, it was like looking good as like the only prop he might actually hit, even with his limited minutes. And then it was so out of hand, he couldn't even play a second in the fourth quarter. But here, the key is, if you also go back to last season, why is this this trend for him where he, in all 3 games last season, he also went up 5. And if you look at his rebound chances last season versus this team, he gets 1 extra rebound chance per game against the Rockets than he does his season averages. He's guarding Dylan Brooks, right? They like to keep him off Brooks because he's just a spot-up shooter. Dylan does a couple of times go at Steph and try to back him down and assert dominance. He just doesn't have a bag of any kind. So they're not worried about Dylan Brooks, and they're happy to let Steph get a little bit of rest on a guy that's consistently off ball and they don't care about. So that leads to the boards for Steph. And I know this is going to be a weird thought with Steph Curry and the threes and him doing incredible stuff, but despite the fact that he's a guy who just does incredible things in spots that are really hard for normal people to do incredible things, it's still not a good spot. It's still a defense that's selling out to him on the points and the rebounds. So on the points and the threes, I'm trying to say. So I don't love that for him. But if you wanted to go rebounds and assists, that would be something I'd have a look for him against this team on the season. Not incredible. In the playoffs, bit better as well. There's some pretty good explanations for why he's gone under the 9.5 twice here. But for the most part, even in this last game where there was a complete blowout, he had so many assists that the rebound and assists actually cashed at this number at 9.5. So I think this is a good number for Steph, especially in the playoffs, especially the way that Houston is playing them. Love the boards. If you want to make it rebounds and assists, I think both are better looks than much to do with the points here for Steph. This is the guy, though, that I think is going to be in line for a pretty good game here. I want to go to Jimmy, but B-Pods, Brandon Podziemski, I do like him a lot more in this one. For points and assists, whichever way you want to play it. The key here is like, I want to bet on Jimmy, but I just don't know if he actually is healthy. Now, if we had even one more day from the travel back from Houston to the Bay, for him to have one more day of rest, I feel like that'd make a huge difference, because it does seem like 2 days after, he played in game 4, he was going to play again, but he had a short leash in the sense that if this game wasn't close, which it clearly wasn't right away in game 5 there, that Jimmy was going to get pulled out because they don't trust his health, right? For Pods, like, I think he's good for another 39, 40 minutes. I think we look at what happened to Pods here in this game 4, where he played 40 minutes and he led the Dubs in minutes. And that's in part because, again, they love having him out there with Jimmy, but also they actually are happy to play Pods a few more minutes, even without Jimmy, because of the fact that they're still nursing an injury, right? And they don't want to lose him for good because they have no shot at this series without him for the rest of the series and beyond. But as far as Pods go, even if you just look at him with, let's give him with Steph and Jimmy, put them on in the games with those 2 guys this season, right? He's played, there's been more than 20. I think we're closer to over 30, 27, right? So if you look at the points, he's at 14 per game. Nice look. 3.6. Okay, so the points and assists, he's right at 18 with these guys out there, right? In 27 games, over and slightly more than half. But the key is the minutes, because like I said, I love him to get back up to 39, 40 minutes in this game. So if we give him a minutes projection here where we take his floor and we make it closer to like 35, which is what it should be for him, now we're looking at really good stuff here. If we even make this like 32, I believe it's still a pretty good hit rate, right? Still looking at 21.7 on the PA, 8 out of 12 games where he's played this many minutes with these guys going over, even in what we would consider a bad matchup. But like, look at head-to-head. He's played 3 games in these situations with this amount of minutes, at least with these 2 guys going over in all three, still at 24 PA. So they're willing to leave him open. That's Ime Udoka's defenses. Steph's not getting an open shot, and Jimmy's going to have to like get a shot at the rim, and they will meet him at the rim, right? But those two guys, they're not going to give open shots to. Pods, Draymond for sure. When Quentin Post gets out there, those Gary Payton Jr., those guys are going to get open shots, and they're not going to be crowding those guys as much because Ime forces the ball into the hands of the guys he wants to shoot. Pods has proved him wrong consistently. Got to go down to our boy Jalen Green and take another under on him. Sorry to do it to you, JG, but like 23.5 is still a very good under for me. He's such a rhythm player, and this team takes him out of his rhythm so well. I mean, if you've seen any of the episodes I put out at all about this game at any point this season when these teams have played, you know I'm just going to keep going back to this. I mean, we used to get this at like 29.5 PRA under for him. Obviously, the minutes are a big part of this, but even in this series, in the playoffs, right? Game 1, 31 minutes, 35 in game 2, 39 in game 3, 25 in game 4, and then 28 in this last one, in part because he got hurt and in part because it was a blowout. But the 25 right here tells you there's a world where if he's not playing well, he gets the leash. Even in the games where he wasn't getting the leash real early and getting hooked out of the game, where he's playing at least 31 minutes or so in the first 3, right? He only went over in the one game. It's at home. The other game he goes, he doesn't go over, but the other game he played well was this last one at home. Don't love it on the road. Once his offense starts suffering, his defense starts suffering, and then he gets the hook and he's on the bench next to Ime Udoka. So that's what I'm looking at for here. There's so many outs. There's so many ways that this goes under. Gary Payton is crushing him. The Dubs could come out huge. I definitely like them to win this game and close out the series. And Jalen Green's a guy who's going to start moping if things don't go his way. So just keep playing the numbers. Like he's not hitting 24 PRA against his team in the playoffs, even in the regular season. You can see still only hit it that one time. And this was the game at the end of the season on the 6th where the Rockets won. I believe Steph might have been out. There was a couple guys missing. Wasn't even a real game in my estimation. But we're going to keep going back to the under here. That's worked so well for us for Jalen Green. As far as any overs that I would take for Houston, I'm really just looking at two guys in Fred and Şengün. I keep telling you, there's nobody else I really trust. I don't want to really have to take Dillon Brooks to get the points either. I know he had 24 in this last game on 8 free throws, 7 of 13 field goals. It was a big momentum game for the Rockets at home. Not buying into that. Again, he doesn't have bad numbers, though. 12.5 isn't like too much for him. In fact, this is actually not a bad over, but let's call it 3 guys. All right, as I'm talking myself into Dillon Brooks over somehow. Let's talk about 3 guys that I would actually trust: Şengün, Van Vliet, Dillon Brooks. Once you get into this point where games in the playoffs, it's going to be tight, but there's only really a couple guys you can bank on getting bigger than normal minutes, then it's tough. I'd rather choose between the guys I know are going to be out there to take overs and not have to guess, is Jabari finally going to get more than 22 minutes? Is Tari going to finally get more than 16 minutes or 15 minutes? Is Steven Adams going to get the minutes that he deserves? He played 17 in this last game. Again, the blowout probably cut into that, but he played 26 in the prior game, right? And it was closer. So maybe he's back in line for stuff, but I don't know for sure. I know that Udoka trusts the crap out of Van Vliet, Şengün, and Dillon Brooks, and those guys are not going to see less than 38 minutes, right? Especially Şengün and Van Vliet. Brooks maybe 36 to 38. Şengün and Van Vliet most likely upwards of 40 to keep them in a game that is do or die for them. So they're going to be taking a ton of shots. I can't guarantee you that both of them are going to have great shooting nights. Şengün's still having great shooting nights. In fact, his percentages are probably in a good look here. Also like the assists for him as well. These are the only 2 guys though. Points and the dimes, because I do think that if Jalen Green's not out there at all, then we put Alperen Şengün back into that facilitator mode, and it's just one of 2 things happening on offense: Fred Van Vliet, Şengün pick and roll, Fred Van Vliet passing to Şengün in the high post and him going to work from there. That's pretty much it. Those are the 2 plays that Ime Udoka, not quite the offensive genius, has, and that's why those 2 guys are going to have such high usage. You can count on both of their points, and I like Şengün on the dimes a bit more than Fred Van Vliet. That is all the time I have for you guys in this one. I keep saying I want to go live, and I keep having a new technician come for that, and then this breaks over here, and I got to go over there to buy that and fix this up, whatever. So, champagne problems, I get it, but the house is a pain in my behind, and it's a big reason why I can't go live every day that I want to. Prop Bomb hits me up consistently. He wants to go live. I know Daft and Pips are always available, so I'm going to try to get to a live show and get some guests on for you guys as well, if I can on Friday. But either way, I'm going to keep coming back this weekend with some more episodes as we got some exciting basketball ahead. So until I see y'all next, happy betting.